Hello, in this video we will cover loops. First we will start with for loops and see else, break and continue keywords, usage of enumerate and zip in for loops, and after that we will see while loops and while true loops. Now let's open a Jupyter notebook and start coding. A for loop is used to iterate over a sequence or any other iterable object. Now let's start with looping through a list. I'm going to create a list of numbers equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now let's start the loop. To do this, I will start with writing for in here, and I'm going to write a name in here for number in numbers and put a colon at the end. This is going to take the place of those elements in this list, and this is the name of the list. This is actually very close to English. For every number in numbers list, what are we going to do? We need to write the statement in the indentation, and we will write number in here. So this is going to loop through this list, and this number will take place of those elements in the list one by one, and it's going to print them. Let's run this, and as you see, it's printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It got into this loop for 5 times, and every time it printed one element of this list. You can write anything in place of this number. It is going to take the place of those elements in the list. Let's write I in here, and after that we need to put I in here also. So it is going to do the same thing. You are free to write anything in here. Okay, let's change this to number again to make it more readable, understandable. Number, run this one more time, and we see the same thing. Okay, now let's do another example. I will create a new cell, and this time I'm going to loop through another list, and this will be a list of strings, fruits, and this will be apple, orange, banana, melon, and pineapple. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with this for every item in fruits list. Okay, fruits list, yes, and I'm going to print the item. Okay, if I run this, I'm going to see that it does the same thing with this one. It is going to print every item in this list one by one, and the item name can change in here. You can write fruits or any other thing you want, and if you run this, you will get the same result. Okay, now let's create another example. I am going to take the numbers list one more time. I will copy this and paste it in here. This time I'm not going to just print them. I will apply some operations on those items in this list, elements of the list. Okay, for number, again, number in numbers, right? Put the colon and get to the next line. It is going to start with the indentation, and I'm going to print number squared, right? Number times number. If I run this time I will get the numbers, but now they are the squares of those numbers. Okay, let's get to looping through a string. This is actually going to be the same with the lists. Strings are also iterables, and I will create one as hello world. Okay, for I will say character this time for char in text, and I'm going to print the character in here. If I do this, it is going to print those characters in the string one by one. Okay, the other things will also be the same with strings. Now let's look at how to loop through a range. A range function is used with for loops to loop through a number of times that you decide. Let's recall the range function. We have covered it, but let's take a look at it again. If I write range 5 and run this is going to create a range object from 0 to 5, and this starting point is inclusive and ending point is exclusive. And if I convert this to a list, we are going to see it more clearly. If I run this, I will get the numbers from 0 to 4, and the element count is important here. When whatever number you write in this range function, it is going to be the length of the iterable that you are going to get. Let's see an example with the for loop. For I in range 5. Okay, if you put the colon and print I in this range, this is going to range for loop for 5 times and going to print those values in the range function. If I run this, I'll get 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, let's make another example in here. For I in range 5 again, I'm going to print 2 times I. And if I run this, I'm going to get the doubles of those numbers. Okay, now let's see nested loops. We are going to take a look at range function more in the exercises and in the later sections of this video. We can have for loops inside for loops. Let's see an example. For outer, this will be the outer loop in range 3, let's say. And after that, I'm going to create one more loop in this outer loop, and it's going to be in this indentation. Let's say for this time inner in range, and let this range be 5. Okay, I'm going to print something in this inner loop, and it's going to be an f string. I will say outer is equal to, let's open close braces, and put this outer variable in here. Okay, after that I will put some blank lines in here, and inner is equal to open close braces again, and take this inner variable this time and put it in here. And let's run this and see what happens. How is this working? Okay, this is the output we get from this nested loop, and let's inspect it. For the outer loop, it will be start from 0, and it will be 0, 1, and 2. And for the first time it loops through it, the outer will be equal to 0, and it will get to this inner loop, and it will loop through for 5 times with the values 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it's going to print this according to the values that we get from this outer and inner. After that, for the second loop of this outer loop, the outer value will be 1, and it's going to loop through this inner loop one more time for 5 times again. Okay, and at the end, the outer value will be 2 at the last loop of this outer loop, and it's going to loop through this inner loop one more time for the values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, this is an example of a nested loop. Let's see one more example of this. Let's say that we are web scraping, and there are 5 pages of data, and in every page there are 10 items. Okay, so what are we going to do? We will go through those pages one by one, and we will get the data of those 10 items on every page. So let's start a loop to do this. For page in range, and the page numbers will start from 1 and end at 5, so we are going to write 1, the inclusive beginning of this range function, and I will write 6 at the end because this is exclusive, right? So this will give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the pages. Okay, after that the inner loop will start. Those will be the items on this page. For item in, let's say, range, and this will also start from item 1, and since there are 10 items, we need to write 11 here, since again this is exclusive, so this will give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, let's put the colon and get inside of this, and I'm going to print those items. Okay, create an f string, and let's say page is equal to page that we got from this outer loop, and put blank lines. Item, we need to be inside of those codes, of course. Item and this will be equal to the item that we get from this inner loop, right? If I run this, I'm going to get something like this. Let's inspect that. For the first page, page 1, we got 10 items on this page. So while we are in this page 1, this started to loop and looped for uh, 10 times. Okay. After that, it got to the second page and did the same thing for it, and it will go on like this until you get to the page 5, which is the last page. Okay, this is how to use nested loops. Now let's see else keyword. Okay, let's start with this. Else is executed when the loop completed normally. Let's take this fruits list again that we have used before and loop through it for say fruit in fruits. For every item in this fruit list, print the item in the list. Okay, let's write fruit in here. Okay, after this for loop, just like the if and else statements, I am going to write else at the end. And after this for loop ended, this is going to execute this else block. I'm going to write print, let's say, I am out of fruits. Okay, if I run this, we will see what happens. It will first loop through this for fruit in fruits list. It's going to print those fruits, and at the end, when the loop is completed normally, it's going to print this one, which is in this else statement. Okay, now let's see break keyword. Break is used to exit the loop, and it mostly used with an if statement. Let's see it on an example. For I in range 10, let's say, and I will write an if statement in here, and it is going to tell the program that if a certain condition is happened while we are normally looping through this iterable, if a certain condition is happened, exit from this loop before it finishes by itself. Let's do this. If I is equal to, let's say, 7, if you got 7 from this iterable, get out of this loop. I will first print something to inform the user. Let's say got into if statement. Okay, breaking. After that, I will use the break keyword like this. This is going to print this, and after that it will break from the loop. If you put break before this print statement will never be executed, because when it sees this break keyword, it is getting out of this loop directly. So we need to put any information before this break keyword. Okay, now I'm going to get out of this if statement, and I'm going to write print I in here, which is the normal thing that loop does if we didn't have an if statement. Okay, let's run this and see what happens. It started from 0 and printed all the values until 7, and when I is equal to 7, it got into this if statement, printed this one, and break out of this loop. Okay, now let's see continue keyword. Continue skips the current iteration and moves to the next one. Let's see an example. For I in range 10, I want to print the numbers from 0 to 9 with this range iterable, and I don't want to see, let's say, 2 and 7. Okay, so let's write an if statement for that. If I is equal to 2 or I is equal to 7. Get into this if statement and print to inform the user got into if skipping. Okay, let's do this, and after that I will write the continue keyword. We will get out of this if statement and print the normal thing that we are going to do, print I. Okay, this will tell the program that if you are at 2 or at 7, get into this if statement, print this information, and after that continue with the next item in this iterable, which will be 3 in this case and 8 in this case. Okay, let's run this. And as you see, it started from 0, it printed 0 and 1, it got to 2 and get into this if statement, print it, got into if skipping, and it did continue with number 3, and it did the same thing with the 7 number. Okay, now let's see another example of this. I will create a new cell. I'm going to use a list this time rather than a range function. Okay, this is the numbers list, and for number in numbers, this time I want to print the odd numbers, just the odd numbers. I want to skip the even numbers in this list. So let's write this if statement for this. For number, if number modulus 2 is equal to 0, that means it is an even number. I'm printing even number skipping. Okay, and after that put the continue keyword and get out of this if statement and write print I. Not I, number, we are using it right now. We can also use I in here. Okay, let's run this and see what happens. It printed the odd numbers and it skipped the even numbers. You can also, of course, delete this print and you can just see the odd numbers in this list in the console. Okay, let's get to enumerate. This allows you to loop over a sequence and have an automatic counter. Let's first see the manual counter that we can define, and after that see the usage of enumerate. I will take the fruits list that we have used before and paste it in here, and the counter will be I and it will be 0 at the beginning. This will count the indexes of those fruits when we loop through it. For fruit in fruits, okay, I will print something in here, an f string, and the index will be equal to this I. This will be 0 at the beginning, and at the end of this loop I'm going to increase it by 1. So for every loop, for every time we loop through it, it will be increased by 1, and the fruit will be equal to open close braces and fruit. Okay, let's write I plus equals 1 to increase it by 1. And if I run this, I'm going to get the indexes of those fruits, and they are true: 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, this is the manual usage, and let's see how can we use enumerate in our loops. Let's take this fruits list one more time, and now I'm going to start the loop directly without defining a counter, but I'm going to put the counter in this loop. Okay, I comma fruit. Okay, after that in fruits, but this is not going to work in this way because we need to this just returns the element of the list for every loop, but we need the index also, so we are going to take this into enumerate function. Okay, now this is going to return both the index and the element of the items in this list. Okay, if I take this print directly in here and run this, I am going to get the same result with this one, but this time it is easier than this because we didn't have to create a counter and increase it manually. We just put this I in here and took this list into enumerate function. Okay, let's continue with zip. Zip allows you to loop over multiple sequences at the same time. Let's create two lists in here. First one will be names, John, Elvis, and Michael. Okay, second one will be points, and this will be equal to 78, 66, and 90. Let's create a for loop using those two lists at the same time. For name and point in, and here we will use zip and put those lists in it one by one, names and points. Okay, the usage is similar to this enumerate. we are writing two variables in here, but this time we have two lists in this zip function, and this is going to get the names from this names list and the point from the points list. Let's print something according to those. Print an f string, open braces, name as, and I write the point here, points. Okay, if I run this, I'm going to get John has 78 points, Elvis has 66 points, and Michael has 90 points. So we use those two lists at the same time, and we have reached their elements at the same time with this loop. Okay. Now in this case, the lengths of those lists are the same, but so we didn't have any problems in here. We got all the elements, but this might not be the case every time. So let's create another cell and do the same thing with lists that the lengths are not equal. Let's copy and paste all of them in here, but this time I'm going to delete this 90 at the end. So the lengths of those lists are not the same anymore. This has a length of 3 and this has a length of 2. Let's run this and see what happens. This time we got two outputs, so this for loop looped for just 2 times because it is arranging the loop count according to the list that has the smallest length. Okay, so it did take John with 78, Elvis with 66, but it didn't include Michael because we are using a zip function, and the this one, the points list, has a length of 2. Okay, now let's get to the while loops. A while loop executes a block of code as long as a condition that we specify is true. Let's see some examples. I is equal to 1, and while I is less than or equal to 5, this is the condition. I am going to print I as long as I is less than or equal to 5, and we need to increase I in here to not get in a endless loop. And let's run this and we will get 1 2 3 4 5. When I is equal to 5, it gets into this while loop the last time, and after that I will be equal to 6, and this condition is not true anymore, so it's not going to continue executing those lines of codes. Okay, let's see another example. I'll do the same thing backwards this time. I is equal to 10, and while the condition this time will be I is not equal to 0. Okay, while this condition is true, I'm going to print I, and after that I'm going to decrease I with minus equals 1 by 1. Okay, let's run this and we will get 10, 9, 8, and it's going on like this. And at the end, while I is 1, it is going to be decreased by 1, and this condition will not be true anymore because it will be equal to 0, and it will break out of this while loop. Okay, let's make another example. Let's say I have a list of data and there's a corrupted one in it, and I want to see the data until I get this corrupted one, and I don't want to see the rest anymore. Let's create a list, my data, and this will be equal to, let's say the first one is fine, and let's copy and paste this for a few times, and here I will get the corrupted data, and after that I have two more fines. Okay, let's create an index in here. Since we are not using a for loop, we cannot loop through this directly. We are going to use the index of this list to use a while loop. While my data index is not equal to corrupted. Okay, while this condition is true, I'm going to print the data, which is my data index. Okay, after that I'm going to increase the index by 1 plus equals 1, And for the second time we loop through it, it is going to be 1, and it will take this one and this one. It will go on like this. And when we get to this corrupted data, this one at index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, it is going to break out of this while loop, and we will not see those fine data at the end. Okay, let's run this. As you see, we got the first 4 items, and when it gets to this corrupted one, this condition is not true anymore, and it got out of this loop. Let's get started with the while true loops. While true loops are infinite loops that execute indefinitely until they are interrupted by a break keyword. Let's see an example of it. While true, this is the implementation, and I'm going to take commands from the terminal using input function, and I will continue to do so until I get quit from the terminal from the user. Let's create the command. Command is equal to input function, and I will write enter the command here. Okay, after that I will write the if statement to break out of this loop. If command is equal to quit, if the user writes quit in the terminal, I'm going to break out of this loop, and if it is not, I will print going to next. Okay, let's run this. It is asking me to enter a comment. Let's say hello in here, and if I run this, I'll get the same thing one more time. If I say hi, if I say hey, it's going to continue to give me the same thing over and over again until I write quit in here. If I write quit, this is going to get out of this, and this will be ended. Okay, let's see one more example that we use while true loops. We can use while true loops with try except blocks. We haven't seen them yet, but let's create a simple example of it. This is the list I'm going to use for this example. Let's define the index as I equal to 0 in here, because we are not using for loops. We need the index to use this list, to loop through this list with while true loop, while true, and I will write try and except block in here. We will write some code in this try block, and if it gets an error, the except block will not let the program crash. It will catch the error and execute the code that you write in here. Let's try something. Delete those. Okay, I will write x is equal to 10 over and the numbers index. Okay, after that I'm going to print the x in here. Indentation is wrong. Okay, I will print the x in here, but when we get to this 0, it is going to throw an error, a 0 division error. So it will get into this except block. So let's write the code for this. When we get in here, we are going to say that error, okay, breaking from the loop. After that, I'm going to write this break keyword, and I'm going to get out of this loop. But if we didn't break from there, I will be increased by 1 to get to the next element of the list. Okay, let's run this. And as you see, it divided 10 by the first 4 elements in this list, and those are the results. But after that, it got to 0. It tried to divide 10 by 0. It got an error, but the program didn't crash because we are using try and except. It gets into this except block, prints this statement, and after that breaks from this loop, and this is the end of the while true loop. Okay, this was all for loops.